I first want to thank you for attending the forum tonight. We appreciate your support and we appreciate your interest in this topic that is of such great importance to our community. My name is Lynn Wilson. I'm the Director of Public Relations for Lowndes County Schools, and I will serve as the moderator for tonight's forum. We'd like to begin with a prayer, and I'm going to ask Mr. Reuben Jenkins, Assistant Superintendent of Lowndes County Schools, to come forward.
Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. We thank you, O God, for all the privileges that we enjoy in this country. We thank you, O God, for your love, your grace, and your mercy. We ask our Father that you would bless this gathering tonight. Pray that you would touch our hearts and minds and enable us to discuss and do it in such a way, oh God, that is pleasing in your sight. Pray that you just lead and guide us through everything that's done and said here tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Fred Davis, Chairman of the Lowndes County Board of Education, to bring a welcome.
Good evening. My name is Fred Davis, and I'm Chairman of the Lowndes Board of Education. And I'm going to skip over introducing myself. Most of you know who I am, so we're going to omit that. And I'm going to say we welcome you here tonight. And I'm going to say that the Lowndes Board of Education of Valdosta, Georgia met on August 30th, 2011 to discuss the position regarding the consolidation of the Valdosta City School System with the Lowndes School System. The Lowndes County Board of Education unanimously agreed that we need to support the Valdosta City System in opposing consolidation. And tonight we're going to continue with that. And we're going to be dealing with the financial issues. But first of all, we'd like to introduce our board members. First of all, Mr. Fred Weatherton, Vice Chairman. Mr. Mike Davis. Mr. Brian Browning. Mr. Philip Poole. Mr. Jason Weisenbaker. I don't think Mr. Dave Clark is with us today. Oh, he's here, Mr. Dave Clark. I'd like to introduce Mr. Bill Kaysen, Superintendent of Valdosta City Schools. Any board members with the Valdosta City Schools? Mr. Love? Any other members? We expect some other members to be here tonight, along with Mr. Love. At this particular time, Ms. Wilson.
You should have received an agenda when you enter tonight. We're going to follow the agenda. Please know that we will allow for questions from the audience at the end of the program. So as you listen to the presenters, if you have questions relating to finance, if you would just jot those questions down, and at the end you will be able to ask those questions at the appropriate time. And now I present to you Dr. Steve Smith, Superintendent of Lowndes County Schools.
Thank you, Lynn. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to offer additional information, accurate information, the truth about school consolidation. And the main focus tonight is going to be on the financial aspect of it. That's where people tend to get lost on the financial aspect of it. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Outliners. I don't know how many of y'all have read that book, Outliners. In the book, he talks about expertise, and he basically states, and this is nothing official, but I tend to believe him, and I think most people I've talked with believe him as well, is that someone who spends at least 10,000 hours in a particular area is generally thought of as being a professional. I've spent 80,000 plus hours in K-12 education. Dr. Troy Davis has spent 55,000 plus hours. Obviously, there's a difference in our age. I started when Troy was about 7. But I'm not an expert in a lot of things, but I can tell you I'm an expert when it comes to K-12 education because I spent 37 years. And I'm giving you that 80,000 estimate as a very conservative estimate because I don't work 8-hour days, and I used a 10-hour day average. And I don't work 5 days a week. I work 7 days a week. If my wife were here, and she may end up walking in, she'd probably tell you she wants to always know, when are you going to turn loose of this cell phone? I said, when I retire. So, oh, she is here. But I have always viewed my responsibility as a teacher, as a coach, as an assistant principal, as a principal, and as a superintendent, being a 24/7 job, because my job is to serve the school system, serve the children, serve the teachers, serve the community. So I feel like that's my purpose here. So I preface these remarks before I continue on, basically to say that I feel that I'm an expert. I feel that Troy's an expert in this area. So we're going to give you information tonight. Mine's going to be rather general. Troy's and Fred's and Phillips is going to be a little more specific to the area of finance. But we've been accused of spreading fear in the community because we're telling the truth. Well, I got news for you. I saw something on the news, I guess it was maybe this morning, I believe I saw it, where a great white shark had taken a bite out of a surfer's surfboard. Big old bite. 21-inch spread between the teeth, I believe they said. Well, I got to thinking, if I was swimming in the ocean and somebody came up to me and told me there was a great white shark, oh, they'd have to tell me there was a baby shark in the water. I'd get out of the water. But I know for sure, when the lifeguard came up to tell me that, you can bet your bottom dollar I'd be getting out of the water. Well, I'm the lifeguard. I'm the professional. I know K-12 education, and I'll challenge anybody that wants to challenge me in my knowledge and Troy's knowledge of K-12 education. We do know what we're talking about. So people have trusted me for the past 9.5 years, and I think they can trust me for another half a year until I go on and retire. And I know they trust Wes Taylor. At least the United States trusts Wes because they selected him as the principal of the year. We have people in this school system. I want to applaud our board. Our board has been the most supportive board I've ever worked with. I don't just have a good working relationship. I have a personal relationship, and every one of these board members will tell you that. You know why? Because our primary interest is in the children. What's going to be best for the children. Now, when you look at research about consolidation, it really comes down to two major aspects. Number one is does it improve academic achievement? In other words, is it in the best interest of the children? Well, I started bringing, and then I told Philip, because my car's battery was dead in London, and I had to get a ride with Philip, and I started to ask Philip, hey, take me back over there. I got about 18-inch or maybe 24-inch stack of information that I've collected over the past year on consolidation, and I've been through all this information. Now, the overwhelming majority, I'd say 98% of that information says that consolidating school systems is not in the best interest of students because it does not lead to any increases in academic achievement. As a matter of fact, if you're in a very rural school system or you're in a school system that has a high rate of poverty, it can be detrimental to consolidate school systems. Now, that's what the research says. When you move to operating costs in school systems, the general trend is a cutoff point, a break-even point, about $1,500 students. See, money's on my mind. Troy's been talking money for the past month. So. But 1,500 students. In populations below 1,500 students, there is some decrease in operating costs when you combine two school systems. For example, 2 or 3 research articles I was reading said that if you combine 2 school systems that had 300 students in each school system, you could expect to cut your operating costs by 20 to 22%. If you combine 2 school systems of 900 students each, you could expect to cut your operating costs somewhere between 6 and 8%. But when you get 1,500 students, you break even. And anything above 1,500 students, you begin to incur additional expense. This additional expense comes as a result of increased cost and decreased revenue. And when you put both of those together, you end up costing a lot more to operate a school system. And the higher you go, it's an economy of scale. So the higher you go, generally the more operating costs you're going to incur. Those are the 2 basic things. The most important is whether or not it leads to an increase in academic achievement. Research says no. Number 2, does it increase operating costs? In the situation we're talking about here, the Valdosta City School System has a student population of roughly 7,500 students. We have a population of 10,500 students. How far away from 1,500 is that? There will be an increase in operating costs. I feel like it's my fiduciary responsibility to the constituents that I serve to let them know that this increase in operating costs will lead to an increase in the millage rate, which will subsequently lead to an increase in taxes for everybody. I also feel like it's my responsibility to say, Huey has said no one will lose their jobs. On November the 9th, everyone will be employed. Let bring that water, please. Well, no one will lose their job on November the 9th. I mean, we're not going to disrupt people in the middle of school. They don't need to worry about November the 9th. They need to worry about the 2012-13 school year and every school year thereafter, because I'm telling you, we cannot operate a consolidated school system and employ the same number of personnel that we currently have employed. I was on a radio show earlier and someone called in and said, well, why is that? We have the same number of students. Well, it depends how you apportion those students. In other words, will all schools remain open? I doubt it. We have a higher student-teacher ratio in the county. The reason we do is it's one of the steps that we took to enable us to survive the recession. We took a lot of what I consider to be very respectful and diplomatic measures. We offered a retirement incentive of 10%, and about 80 teachers took advantage of that opportunity and retired. That enabled us to maintain 80 more people on our staff, but it cut our operating costs by having 80 less teachers in the system. We cut personnel from every category. Now, we have a higher teacher-pupil ratio in the county than the city does. The city has a lot of Title I money that we don't have because their socioeconomic rate is much higher than our socioeconomic rate, or you can also put it, their poverty rate is a lot higher. And they need a lot more money to operate off of. And they generally use that money, that Title I money and the Race to the Top money, to reduce, and also Title II money, to reduce the size of the classrooms so that the teacher-pupil ratio is lower. Now, research says until you get down to about 13, it doesn't really have any appreciable difference in student achievement. But granted, from having been a teacher for 13 years, it's a lot easier to teach a smaller group of students than it is to teach a larger group of students. And my morale was a whole lot better when I taught a smaller class. So it's extremely important for us to realize that it will result in the loss of jobs. I hate that. But I wouldn't be honest with you if I stood here and told you it wouldn't lead to a loss of jobs. But like someone asked today, well, does it mean I'm not going to have a job on November the 9th if it passes? Well, first of all, I hope it doesn't pass. But if it does pass, that's for the voters to decide. You will have a job on November the 9th. But it's subsequent school years that I think you need to be concerned. And I listened to one of the radio shows yesterday, and three representatives did acknowledge that there would be a loss of jobs because that's one of the few areas that we can actually save money in a consolidation effort. Another area is in busing. Now, one of the primary goals of this consolidation effort, according to QE, is to increase diversity. Well, I'm all for increasing diversity. If this school system consolidates, I can assure you, I will likely get a call on Wednesday morning from the Department of Justice that tells me basically that I've got 12 months to create a school system that complies with their ramifications or parameters. And their parameters are probably going to be that this school system needs to look like this community. And in some cases they already look like the community, in other cases they don't. So what do you have to do? Dr. Casey called in yesterday on the show and he made it clear. It will increase the cost of busing because more students will have to be moved from one school to another school. Now I think people don't understand the full magnitude of consolidation. Not only will students move, folks, teachers, support personnel will be relocated too. So that's a lot, that is a lot of disruption. And I go back to what I said at the very beginning. If research indicated that it was going to make a significant increase in student achievement, and especially if it said it was going to save money, well, I'd be all for it. But it doesn't say that. There's no appreciable difference in student achievement, and it costs more money in school systems the size that we have here. So that's basically what research says about it. I've read it, I know it, and I'm a better person from having read it and know what the research says. I want to close and turn it over to Troy and Philip and Fred, but one thing I want to say to you is this. The ultimate goal of the Lowndes County school system is to provide the best education to the students we serve. Right now we just serve the county students. If we end up serving the city and the county students, we're going to do the best job we can to provide the highest quality education to any student that we serve. We just feel like it's not in the best instructional interest or the best financial interest to consolidate the two school systems. If you wanted to consolidate the school system, you need to start, first of all, with a question to the Valdosta City School Board. Do you want to give up your charter? And all these other consolidations throughout the state, the city has decided, they made a concerted decision that they wanted to give up their charter, mainly because of financial difficulties. Folks, I've told many, many people this, and I'll say it again. If the Valdosta City school system, the Lowndes County school system is financially solvent right now, folks, we're going to always be financially solvent. We've had the toughest 3 years in any era that any of us in this room have lived, because I doubt there's anybody in here old enough to have lived during the Depression. If we can withstand these challenges, and the way we withstood them is through teamwork, working together, hand in hand. People say, I see Sam back there and I see Bill up there. People say that we don't work together. I'm going to tell you how it is. It's a lie, a bold-faced lie. And there's a lot of people in this room who's heard this statement by Myrna Ballard. For 6 years, Sam and I worked together. She always complimented us on how well we worked together and how close we were and such good friends that we are. You know what I tell Myrna? Myrna, I was friends with Sam before I came here. Why wouldn't I be even better friends now that I live in the same community with him? The same thing about Bill. I met Bill the first day on the job when I came to the Lowndes County School System as the superintendent. We have a very close working relationship. And not only just the superintendents, our assistant superintendents, our principals, our teachers, we work together. We collaborate. Why? Because we have the same goal in mind, to serve the students that we deal with day in and day out to the best of our ability. And that's all we're trying to do. I applaud QE for their compliments on the city school system. I've been saying that all along. They're making great strides in student achievement. We're making great strides in student achievement. You know, I calculated today, they got me thinking. You know, at first the focus was the Valdosta City school system and how deplorable the conditions were there. And then once we decided that we were going to support the city, then they shifted the focus to us. And I began to evaluate, now, can we do better? Our motto has been since 2003. Lynn, what is it? Good to great. If our motto wasn't good to great, we wouldn't be trying to get better. Well, we know we can be better, but I'm telling you what, it takes a community effort to be better. It takes everybody working together. Y'all have heard me say this before. It's a three-legged stool. It's the school, it's the home, and it's the community working together. Now, I see the home working very diligently with us right now. And I see certain parts of the community working very diligently with us right now. But until we get the whole community behind both school systems and putting the same quantity of dollars and the same quantity of labor into helping ensure that both school systems are as successful as they can be, then we're not doing our jobs. And the bottom line is, I know who comes in and who doesn't come in our school system. A lot of these people I've never seen in our school system. I hope after next Tuesday, win, lose, or draw, we'll see them in our school system. We want your help. We need your help. We appreciate you coming in and helping us. But folks, it takes teamwork. You can't do it as an individual. A lot of people think that it's unusual to have two school systems in a community. Well, it's not that unusual. It's more commonplace throughout the United States than you would think. All you got to look, you can look at Texas. You can look at California. Oh, Texas, they have, Wes and I were with a group from Texas last week, and I asked them, how many school systems do y'all have in y'all's county? They said 5. I said, is that typical? They said, yeah, that is in Texas. You know, for years, everybody compared the Texas Miracle. I think that's when President Bush started talking about the Texas Miracle. I'm not sure it was really a miracle after all, but they do a pretty good job. I know Georgia has tried to duplicate what was done in Texas and what's been done in North Carolina. So obviously, you know, something right was being done during that time. So there's nothing wrong with having two school systems. So what I say to you tonight is this. Number one, the Valdosta City School Board made a decision not to give up their charter. The Lowndes County Board of Education supports that decision not to give up their charter. The research indicates that consolidation is not in the best interest for the Lowndes County and the Valdosta City School System. The third thing I say is this. Until such time that the entire community comes together and decides that this is in the best interest of the system, then it doesn't need to be done. If we're doing what's in the best interest of the students. And that's what our ultimate goal is, students first. The litmus test of every decision we make is based on, is it in the best interest of students? The board members have heard me ask this question. Does it serve the best needs of students? And if it does, if we can afford to do it, then I can assure you we'll do it. Unfortunately, the situation that exists today is that the Valdosta City School System is in the midst of a hostile takeover by a private entity. That's what it is. A hostile takeover by a private entity. That's not right. That is not right. They want to create a school system, their school system, not our school system. Folks, we got to work as a team. We've got to stick together. A lot of these people are my friends. I hope they're still my friends, but look, you're playing in my playground. I've spent over 85,000 hours in this line of work. I know what I'm talking about. And if you do what's in the best interest of children, you'll make the right decision next week. So if I haven't convinced you, then I know that Troy and Philip and Fred will convince you, because it all comes down to children, and I've talked about the children, and they're going to talk about the dollars and cents that go directly back to the children, because you're either putting money in the children's pockets or you're taking money out of their pockets. Troy, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Fred and Philip are going to, we're going to walk through this again. And last time we were here with the forum, we talked about the financial impact of consolidation. You know, what is it? And so we've all had an opportunity to hear a lot of different kinds of data and information, and we've read a lot, and we've watched the television, and we've listened to the radio, and so what we're going to try to do is take that information and let's go through this one more time. And we're going to add another piece to it. And I told you before now, I am not a spokesman. I'm not a politician. I'm just a teacher who started out a long time ago on the farm, and I made my way because of my parents insisted that I went to public school and I went to public colleges, and you're going to work. And I did that. So I'm just a teacher, so I'm going to teach through this a little bit, and then we'll have some time for questions, and we're going to start, and Mr. Webbington and Mr. Poole, they're going to jump in here at any minute and say, "Whoa, wait a minute, Troy, I want to say this." And they're going to come up here and talk and help me present this, okay? If we were in a normal classroom, we'd just stop at any time. We'd just say, "Oh, I have a question." We'll wait till the end. So here we go. Al, if we could, again, we're talking about consolidation of financial puzzle. I would not even talk about this puzzle if Valdosta City School System, our neighbors, our friends say that, hey, we like our school system. We want to keep our school system. We enjoy working with our children. And their community has said we want our school system. So let's talk about this financial puzzle. Just a refresher, I want you to remember this number. I'm saying the same thing I said last time. It hasn't changed at all, by the way. This is the amount of money that we receive from local revenue. This is local revenue. This is how we operate our local side of our school system, $45,722,633. Just remember the 45.7, okay? That's the easiest way to do it, math estimate. Let's go to the next slide now. Now, there's been a lot of talk about what the new millage rate will be, what the new consolidated tax digest will be. And we've put this together, we've added this together, we've grouped this together. Well, let me tell you, I'm not a tax digest guy either. I don't do tax digest, but I did find somebody that did, and that would be the Georgia Department of Revenue. And this is a consolidated tax digest for a consolidated school system in Lowndes County, should that happen, okay? And I put a little bullet up there, the balloon is actually mine, to show you that the new mill rate for a consolidated school system would be $2,802,088 per meal. Not $2,900,000, not $2.5 million, not any other number that you find. This is the consolidated tax digest for a consolidated school system. That's an important number there as well, $2,802,088. Okay? So, how do we come up with a new mill rate? We want to keep that $45,722,633. That status, I call that status quo, okay, in the financial world, all right, the financial world. Let's don't cross status quo and student achievement and status quo in financial world. Things go up. I graduated high school in 1982. Dr. Smith alluded to it earlier, that I was just a little bit younger than he was. A gallon of gas was much cheaper for that 1977 Thunderbird I drove than today when I pull up and fill up with gas today. So in the financial world, things go up. So I want you to remember that there's our number. If we just could operate off of the current collected revenue, you take the new per meal amount, divide it into that. And by the way, these slides will be up on our website hopefully tomorrow. And you can do the math. Please do and check me, okay? It's 16.317 meals. Not 15.8, not the two divided together, not, I do know what 1 plus 1 is. I do know it's not 3. This is the new millage rate, okay? Status quo, 16.317. The Lowndes County residents for school taxes are paying 14.7. The city system is paying 16.98. Status quo millage rate, 16.317. But Dr. Smith has already alluded that consolidation will do what? Cost more money. It's going to cost more money. And we're going to find that out in a few minutes. Let's go to the next slide. You know, when this first was presented to me, it was presented to me as a group of folks wanting to consolidate school systems. We want to take the Valley City school system and consolidate the school system. All my life, in terms of solving problems, whatever that problem be, the most minor problem or the largest of problems, I wanted to see what the data was. What was I working with? What tools did I need? What were we talking about? In case of numbers, what are you asking me to do? Is that what that's your experience, isn't it? Somebody asks you to do something, what are you asking me to do? So I immediately began to look at the information that was given out, the request, what are you asking me to do? So off of the website, there's a link there. Tomorrow when you go on the website, it will be live. You can click on that link, and you can go and you'll see the next slide. And this is the information. There's a difference between the two school systems in terms of per pupil expenditures. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about this data. This is not my data. This is the Lowndes County school system data and the Valdosta City school system data as collected by all of these references down there at the bottom. You may not be able to see them, but Department of Education, report cards, so forth and so on. But I didn't put this together, okay? I did not put this flyer together. All I did was said to myself and the group, if you want to bring the Valdosta City school system's per student expenditures to the Lowndes County school system per student expenditures based on this information, it's going to cost that annually. Then there was a lot of discussion about, well, that includes SPOS and capital outlay funds and federal funds and state funds and local funds, and I never said that it was not. Okay? This is what it's going to cost if you want to do that. I will tell you this, that all those funds are being used. Okay? So let's go to the next slide out. And then this document came across my desk, and this was some additional information. I'll just take a minute here to read this if you haven't already read it. I'm not going to read to you. Well, maybe I will. 1 plus 1 does not equal 3. I knew that. The bottom here, at the very bottom, says by including these revenue sources in their calculations, county school officials are using projections that are wrongly inflated and misleading. Now, can I go back to the other slide, please? Okay, we'll go to the next slide. It's not my data. It's not Lowndes County Board of Education's data. It's not our projections. So at that point, you know, I said, well, then what do we do? So we go to the next slide out, and I received this document that says the facts about taxes and school unification. This is the title of the document. It's documented on the website. You can go find that document, and I just cut and paste this out and said, okay, well, this is what we're asking. Remember, what are we asking? Well, this is what we're asking. We're asking for, instead of the earlier figure that I showed you, the $2,100 figure per student, well, hey, how about $11,633 per student? Okay? Well, I can tell you that Lowndes County School System is already spending that amount of money on their children. They've already spent it. It's done. That's a past year number. We have no intentions of stopping doing what we're doing for children. Because it does what? Dr. Smith said it earlier. Our children are achieving. I actually have 2 children that they're doing pretty good in the school system. So I said, okay, well, now we want to spend that much money on every child in the Valdosta City school system. So I go back, I pull that document, I take the number of students, the Valdosta City school system, which is hidden by my balloon, but it's there, and that's the new annual cost. Okay? So, okay, I'm good with that. I'm all right with that. Remember, what do you want? That's what I'm asking. What do we need? What do you want? So we'll work with that number. Now, Fred.
I'd like to say something here. This is actually, I think Troy just pointed out to you, what they've done is tried to average now the cost, the difference between the expenditures that they've had. That same slide right here, by the way, is still on the website, so it's not something they've taken down. But I actually think they're getting in the ballpark here. So I just want to commend. I want to commend the changes that's been made, and this is one of the areas that I think that they've come around and made a better estimation. So I'd like for you to remember this number, because later I'm going to refer back to this number. This will be important. This is a change. You know, the 16 million now has come down to 8 million, and I'll just go ahead and give you a hint. This percentage-wise sort of ties in with what's happening in America's Sumter County. We've been accused of not giving any schools data, although I've been on the radio and give you a lot of school data from Tennessee, which is where their consultant did some work up there, and I give the property tax increases involved with several of their school systems up there. But we'll use America's Sumter County example, and this figure right here will tie back in a little later. So I just want you to remember this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. And I will tell you this, that having my first degree was in accounting, my second degree and major was in mathematics. I was a math teacher, and then the next 3 was in educational administration. But I'll tell you this, I've never found a bad number. I like it. I like numbers, and this is a good number. I'm good with this number. So we go to the next slide, Al, if you will, and so I go back to my days of teaching math, and we're not going to do a geometry lesson or if-then statements, but I did say to myself, okay, what about if this, then I take that amount divided by the new mill rate, right? Is the number. And I get that many more additional males beyond, remember, 16.317? That's where we are now. And then I said, okay, well, if not that one, if this, then there's 2.871 additional mils annually. Or then I said, well, what are the facts about Texas and school unification? Let's look at that. Let's look a little deeper. And let's throw in some facts that we know. So let's go to the next slide, Al, and talk about costs associated with consolidation. And the next slide tells us, you saw this before if you came to the last forum, if you've been on our website. These areas, consolidation will increase costs in new classes, transportation, technology, salaries, per pupil expenditures, legal, benefits, software. These are just a few, just to name a few. Okay? I'm sure if consolidation occurs, we're going to find more. Maybe we'll find a little less, but I'm sure we're going to find more as we travel the road. So let's go to the next one out. And what I began to do was, I started contacting in both systems all the people in charge of these areas, because I'm not an expert in these areas. I just say, okay, we're going to consolidate, we're going to start looking at transportation, for example. And if we have to transport for whatever reason, you know, diversify, whatever reason we're going to transport for, how much more money will we have to spend? In software and technology, we have 2 very distinct systems with very distinct technology platforms, okay? And what that means is, how many of you are Apple iPad or iMac users? You don't have to raise your hand, but I'll raise, I'm one. And then you would have like the PC platform, you know, that side. So that's very similar. That's just an analogy. But if we're going to get on the same page, so to speak, and consolidate and unify, then we have to get on the same page, right? So everything has to work in the same way. In the technology world, it's very important, particularly today, the way our children learn. So we started looking at, okay, how does this happen? Then we started talking about, well, what about administrative software, HR software, financial software? We have to report to the state. Student data, financial data, teacher data, classified employee data. You can't pay people in two different financial software packages. You can't have two sets of books. Okay? So the software has to be upgraded. The hardware has to be put in place to do that. So Al, these are just some expenses. Laura, you can go through these and look at these, and we'll go to the next one. Philip.
Well, let me just make that point that, you know, a lot of folks don't understand state financial numbers, and it's a very complex system. And when the state allocates money, they always tie it back to certain stipulations, and rightfully so, because the state wants to control where you spend your money. So it's a very complex system. But what Troy just said is important. We're operating two separate school systems, basically on two different platforms of hardware and software. We have to report to the state on a common system. We can't, because somebody might say, well, this is going to cost money, let's just keep the same two systems. Let's just continue as we are. We can't do that, folks. If you put them together, you're going to be required to have one common system. You can't, like Troy said, you can't pay people out of two different payrolls. You're going to have one uniform way of reporting to the state. So there's going to be cost incurred that wouldn't be incurred if you don't consolidate.
Here I'm just going to keep running through a list. We want pre-K classrooms to be, we have X number of elementary schools, we want to have the same number of pre-K classes as close as we can in all of our elementary schools in a consolidated system. That makes sense, right? I mean, I think our community and our parents would expect that. Well, right from the start this year, cut the pre-K program. They cut the number of days, and they cut the number of classes across the state. So if we add pre-K classes in our consolidated school system, then we're going to have that as a local expense. This number is a reflection of what it costs to add 6 classes, 6 pre-K classes, based on last year's expenditures of what we actually paid to have a preschool class. Technology WAN, technology infrastructure, these things, the 2 technology departments have been working on this for you know, letting us know how much this is going to cost. I want to go in there because I don't understand the infrastructure part of technology. Let's go to the next one out. And let's talk about local costs. What will it cost locally? If we move a child from a school to another school in terms of balance or diversity or how we want to do that, and let's say at that school that this school has a permission board and this school has 4 computers, but the school I came from had 6. Do we need to make sure that we have 6 computers in every classroom? Do our teachers, we currently have, our teachers have laptops and docking stations and monitors? Do our incoming teachers need laptops and docking stations and monitors? If not, what does that create if we don't do that? A consolidated system of have-nots and haves, right? How unified does that sound? So, okay, in my mind, mathematically, we went to look at what do we need to do? And here's some numbers. Curriculum has been talked about a lot. We want to get on the same curriculum. Well, let me tell you, we're already on the same curriculum. It's a Georgia curriculum. It's a state-mandated curriculum. It's been that way ever since I've been in this business, and I really don't look for that to go anywhere except maybe to a national curriculum, and that may happen. But we do use different types of resources, different kinds of programs, different kinds of ways we deliver reading instruction, math instruction, social studies instruction, science. I just used elementary school to give you an example. This is what it would take annually. We would spend this much money to bring the other elementary schools up to our programs at the Lowndes County School Elementary Schools, and then an initial cost of this amount. That's a real number. Okay? Next one, Al. Well, what will consolidation decrease? It will decrease some. It will have some decreases, okay? There are some decreases in consolidation. Federal funding, state QBE funding, equalization funding, teachers, administrators, support staff, new schools, salaries. Dr. Smith alluded to one I don't have on here, perhaps closing schools. But let's see what it'll decrease in terms of where we are now. I too talked to the Georgia Department of Education. I talked to the Finance Department, and I talked to the Facilities Department. It's not unusual. I consider those two people peers and professional friends of mine. So I talked to them. And I said, tell me about Title I federal funding. And they said to me, the minimum amount would be $700,000. I said, can I go with $700,000? Yes. So the literature that you've been seeing is $700,000. Now, that's a good number. That's a solid number. It's like Fred said earlier. We're glad of that number and it being a published number.
Can I highlight?
Yes, sir.
I just want to point out again, here's where they've moved the football in our direction. We're agreeing. I mean, this is what we said from the beginning, and we were ridiculed about not knowing what we were talking about. Title I funding, and I think a lot of people in here is with the school system, but if you're not, just so you understand, that money is spent either on jobs or on programs directly. It has to be spent on your economically disadvantaged kids. I want to repeat something I said in the first forum, but I think this is the appropriate time, because here's where we've come together in a couple of big areas. And I'm proud to be from this community. I said this before, and I want to start that again. I have friends on the other side of this argument. I have family and friends that have supported. My friend Mr. Watt lived there, and some of his real estate development, some of his commercial development, and God bless him. He's my friend, and I root for it. I'm all for it. My family has been represented by Mr. Curry's law firm since the 70s, so I'm all for him. I mean, I'm not. This is not personal. We just can agree to disagree on this. And I just want to tell everybody, this thing has got emotional with folks, and people said, I've heard on both sides some things, some personal things that we really need to realize. No matter what happens next Tuesday, I mean, this is a great place to be from, the Valdosta Lowndes County area, and I think those gentlemen and others on the other side would agree. And for whatever reasons, we agree to disagree on this. But everybody wants our community and all to prosper. But the Title I funding is directed towards economically disadvantaged children. That's where you have to spend the money. This is important to highlight because one of the goals from the QE group is to help the children. And we said at the last forum, and this is what I wanted to repeat, is that if you would look at the color of the skin, I think color has become a big issue in this debate, and really it's about poverty. I would ask you and remind you again that the school data, if you'll look at it, where the kids where both systems are challenged and can do better is from the homes generally. And like I said, some of the best parenting that I know of in the 8 years I've been on school board, I've seen from single parents that were from low-income homes that demanded from their kids, had extremely high expectations. So I just want to make that comment. But generally, the data, student data, their success and achievement rates, you can follow it back to income levels. And this is where, as a community, that we can do better. This is another area of agreement. It's just that when you're going to do something that's going to take federal dollars, and we'll talk about federal programs and future programs that we can't even identify right now, that we will not be able to tap into, or won't be able to tap into the amount that we're able to tap into in the situation we have now with the 2 independent districts. That's taking money off the table to go directly to the students who need the help the most. So all I'm asking you is to realize that we've come together on Title I, at least on the Title I, because in the past week they've confirmed that Title I money will be, that there's an issue there. There'll be less Title I money. But I just want to bring that out, that that's somewhere that we both agree. I don't think there's any disagreement on the Title I funding. But what we're saying is, and I'll just take it to this end, if Consolidation takes that money and other federal monies that are tied to the same poverty data that Title I, that you qualify, same qualifiers for Title I, then shouldn't we do something different to attack the problem? Because we see the problem as a poverty problem in both systems. You know, we have 46, you know, our student population hadn't been talked about a lot in this issue, and I just want to say 46% of our students come from homes that qualify for free and reduced lunch. You know, it's 76% in the city. So it's no doubt, just like Dr. Smith said, they have a larger challenge there than we do. But we both have big challenges in this area. We have a 34% minority population. You know, I don't think they've been recognized in this argument because it seems like we've been pigeonholed as that we're a white system and the city is a black system. Well, believe me, it's not just all black and white. You know, we're not all blonde-haired and blue-eyed in Lowndes County. I can just promise you that. That's not the situation at all, you know. And we're proud of our minority population, but we both have challenges as it comes to poverty data. Instead of skin color, I really think if you follow the data, it points to poverty and poverty issues. And this is where hopefully after Tuesday we can get together and with our churches, our civic groups, and our business community and try to address the problem and try to do some targeted things that will connect there. But anyway, I'll shut up. The Title I thing now we all agree on. That was not the case at our last forum. It is the case tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. In my conversation with the Department of Education, we began to run down a list of other grants, Title II federal funding, approximately $30,000 decrease or loss. School nutrition funding, the Valdosta City School System receives more per meal reimbursement than the Lowndes County School System. The QBE funding central office, you've seen this in some published information or information out there, is $800,000. The Department of Education told me $780,000. I took the lesser number. CTAE director, the Department of Education told me that they will not fund 2 Perkins directors, so that is approximately $50,000. State equalization funding, that number, the Department of Education would not commit to me on because they need to receive this new tax digest and use that to compute equalization and local fair share. So neither one of those areas would they commit to. I actually use this from the Chamber of Commerce study from the Carl Vinson Institute. I pulled that out of page 33 if you want to go look at that. Okay? Next slide, if you will, Al. Bring a loss of revenue. Race to the top grant funding, $2,100,000. Dr. Casey actually told me this number. Department of Education confirmed with me that one of two things will happen to Race to the Top. And Washington makes the decision. The first option will be that if the new Lowndes County School System will commit to all the provisions of Race to the Top, they will agree to do that system-wide and for all their schools, then Washington would possibly consider allowing Race to the Top funds to stay in the system and target it to the schools where it's going at right now. The second option was that Washington would make a determination that there had been a significant material change. That is a kind of an accounting word, material change in the dynamics or composition of the school system, and therefore the school system no longer met the original application. Dr. Casey told me today that the Department of Education told him that if that is the case, then the funds would be redistributed to other Race to the Top systems. Okay? When I asked the question, what do you believe? I just want your opinion. What do you believe will happen? I was told that the Race to the Top funding would not come to the new consolidated school system. I asked that question on 2 different conversations to the same person and wrote down the same answer. Valdosta City Schools wireless projects, E-rate grants, that's all based on poverty data. It is purely driven by poverty data. And the wireless project the Valdosta City School System currently has in their E-rate plans would be gone. We could not support that. It would be gone. Any future competitive grants? Philip or Fred?
This is what I was talking about a minute ago. And in all honesty, what we could do and maybe what we should do is look back 10 years. I know I was at a Rotary Club event the other day, and James Bridges, who was representing the QE side of the argument, was talking about 10 years, look 10 years down the road. Well, we can't look 10 years down the road and tell you what kind of millions of dollars would be on that question mark right there. But what we might could do is look back 10 years and give some kind of estimate as to what it would be. There's no doubt, because like I said, most all federal dollars are tied to targeting economically disadvantaged kids. And so the PACE grant that we just finished, that was just finished up, that was in the $2 million range. I mean, so whether you would qualify or you just qualify for a lot less money, that's the question. I mean, it would be one of the two. So this number, even though we didn't put a number out here, you need to understand that the QE group has said that we would be eligible. They felt like by us consolidating to one system, we'd be eligible for more private foundation money. So I'm telling you, that's their answer to this. I can tell you that we've received money in the past from like the Gates Foundation, which is a private foundation. And I'm speaking for myself, I don't see how in the world we could raise enough private money in a 10-year period to match what we've received, could receive in federal funding to target a certain economically disadvantaged group. I don't see how that would wash out or come out to be a positive. But this is a number, we didn't put a number onto it, but this is a number you really need to think about, because Title I, they've called the state, just like we have, and got the Title I deal, and the same qualifiers work for most of your federal funding and most of your competitive grants from the federal government. So we would be at a disadvantage by combining our systems versus having an independent situation that we do now.
Okay, I'll go to the next slide. There are also some decreases in expenses. Okay, if you're going to look at this problem, and you're going to look at it in the right way, then I think you have to look at what expenses can we cut out, because there's not enough money to do all of this stuff. Okay, take all these losses to balance the programs, to increase all the areas we showed. So what expenses can we reduce? Well, the superintendent's office, and there's some of those positions included in administrative positions. But I'll just run through this list. Superintendent's office, teaching positions, administrative positions, support staff positions, and facilities and operations staff. These are positions that we would reduce, or the working staff in the schools to save this kind of money. This is not new. For the last 2 years, in the Lowndes County school system, we have went through this same process. It is painful, it is hard, it is difficult, there are tough decisions, and there's winners and there's losers. And I don't know any other way to say that. But this is the way you have to balance a budget. If you only have so much money, you have to make tough decisions about what are the next steps.
So I'm going to mention on this page here, I've talked to different my friends on the other side of the issue here, and you get different responses. Some would ask us to keep the student ratio, the teacher-to-student ratio that the Valdosta City system has. They have, Dr. Smith alluded to that in his opening remarks, that would be what they would see as the ideal situation. Well, these numbers wouldn't be as big. This is based on what we've done in our system the last 2 years. So we'll get to this at the end, but that's why we put all these categories and put numbers out beside. It's like a buffet, I reckon. You could look at it as going down the buffet line. You can decide yay or nay on some of these items. There'll be priorities, there'll be winners and losers as far as programs and staff and all this kind of stuff. So just understand this is based on what we've gone through, the 2 reduction in forces that we've incurred in the last 3 years. And so we're trying to be honest and say if we applied that same template, you know, we'd be looking at these numbers. Thank you.
Okay. Consolidation will increase millage rates. It will increase the millage rates. This came from a local tax fund of our public school system event of unification. Lowndes Board of Education has not brought forward any information other school systems having consolidated that document the occurrence of such a large increase in property taxes. We need to do a research. That's what it says to me. Go see what happens. So, Chattanooga, Hamilton County, Tennessee, 30% increase. Knox County, Tennessee, 57% increase. Jackson, Madison County, Tennessee, 38% increase. Sumter County, which was Americus, and now Sumter, a 17% increase in taxes.
Something else that we don't have on the slide here is that Ware County and Waycross consolidated, and one of the things that they wanted to do through their consolidation was build a magnet school. It's something that's been promoted on the other side too, which you don't have to consolidate. I'll tell you, either school system could build a career academy or a magnet school. You know, you can do any of that. We do not have to consolidate if one of the school systems wants to go that direction. But they closed, Ware County had to close their magnet school level. They made that decision because of financial costs. So anytime you're going to do something and go out to the people and promise, say that this is what we're going to do, that's part of the reason why we had the first forum. And, you know, we've had the second forum here tonight just to try to put dollars on all these different programs. Some people would know about and recognize. Some people, you know, probably have no clue because, like Philip said, there's just all kind of sources that goes into education, and a lot of them have strings attached, and you have to spend them in certain areas. But the situation, like in Troup County, QE brought Dr. Jenkins down, who is now in Lee County, Alabama, which has 3 school systems in it, by the way. And in Alabama, they're deconsolidating. You'll find the trend, and that's the trend nationally, that where in the 80s and early 90s, consolidation was the trend. In the last decade or so, there's a trend to deconsolidate. And I think if you'll reflect over some of the slides and all we've gone over in the last little while, you'd understand why that would be the case, so you could target your population better, you know, and have more support in doing so. But in Troup County, I just wanted to mention, they're right at 19. There were over 19 mills. For several years, I have a sister and brother-in-law. He was raised and went through the schools over there through the consolidation law. Tina, she's a teacher. They live in Troup County. They're right at 19 mills now. That's another one that we can look at. If you know, remember where we're at with our consolidated millage rate, which comes from the State Department of Revenue. It's not a number that Troy made up. It comes from State Department of Revenue. You know, we're a lot lower than where Troup County is at. So Dr. Jenkins came over. You know, they brought him in, and I just wanted to make sure everybody knew where they were at with their millage, their consolidated millage rate. All right, thank you.
So, what is the what would work? Okay, it's a lot of questions about the 23%, 42% based on 21 mills. You know, what would work? And this is an evolving working process. So I said to myself, well, let's don't take all the 30 and the 35 and the 50 something. Let's take 17%. Sumter County consolidated in 2004, I believe it was, and so let's just take a look at them. And if you look at their 17% on their mill rate, and that's what it was on their mill rate, it's 2.77 mills, or an increase of $7,772,683. So we were at 16.317. And if we put this in here, that's 19 something, right? So,
what I want to mention about, if you remember what I mentioned earlier about why I thought we were getting in the ballpark, you know, if you remember the QE document that Troy referenced earlier, where they've sort of split the baby on the $16 million number and at an $8 million number, this is really close to putting the percentage of what's happening in American Sumter and applying it to our the new consolidated Lowndes system, then you get right, this is pretty close to the number, and that's why I wanted to say I thought we were getting in the ballpark, and maybe, this is the lower percentage of the examples that we found both in Georgia and Tennessee. So that's why I thought that maybe we found maybe another area of agreement there that the two sides could agree on.
And so, to build on what Fred said, this is, you remember the number, 8 million and change, so this is about right at 250,000 roughly or so off. And so this seems logical. Okay, let's go to the next slide out. What is a request financially? So again, we go back to when this first came out. What do you want? What are you asking for? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to do financially? So Al, let's take a look. There it is. The per pupil expenditures, $8,045,448. That was adjusted from $16 million. Building new schools. I'll talk about this number for just a second. We've been fortunate enough in the Lowndes County School System to build 4 new schools. And we have an elementary school that we used as this point of reference. We just built these schools in the last 3-4 years. So we know what it costs to build an elementary school. Bainbridge just built a brand new high school. It was $55 million. So I said, well, those numbers are fresh enough. Why don't we use those numbers? The number of schools that were being asked for originally was for elementary schools to be 300 to 400 students. Then I believe the last came out and set up to 600 students. So 5 to 7 elementary schools, another high school. How about a little money in case we want to build or do a renovate for a magnet school or whatever, those kinds of schools. So that's where that came from. It's not 200 million, and I have to apologize to Mr. Poole for that. I missed it a little bit. I was estimating or projecting, but this is based on real numbers. Professional staff development, in one of the publications and emails it said that the business community uses 2% of their budget for professional development, and that the consolidated school system should use $1,500,000. I've been in 2 different systems over the last 10 fiscal years, and 9 going into 10 fiscal years, and there's something called an austerity cut. The state, the children, the teachers earn that money, then the state takes it back because they don't have enough money to give to us. The first area from day one that they told us to cut from was professional staff development. Cut that money out. We haven't come close combined to spending $1,500,000 for professional development. In 10 years in these 2 systems and the system that I came from. So, Fred, these are the 3 areas.
And understand, I think not all the QE folks are in agreement with these requests. This is just, there's been a lot of emails, a lot of flyers, a lot of radio ads, and I'm not sure that they've all checked with each other and got, and been in unanimous, been all together unanimous on what they thought would be possible. I want to mention about the building project. I think we're all would think that in a perfect world, having elementary schools that be 400 student size population would be extremely ideal. I don't think they would find any disagreement with any of us on that. The problem is going to be they've referenced a program, say that we can tap into in the state of Georgia that hadn't been financed, has been zeroed out, and is not listed in the budget. And it's been years since it was zeroed out for years, and then it was just taken out of the budget altogether. So if you could start that program again, like I said, I'm giving them all the credit that they can make that happen up in Atlanta, to start that program, get that program started up again. If you look at what happened back in the years when that program was around, there's 2 things I want to mention with that program. You have to. First of all, you have to pre-apply. That means before you do your consolidating, you have to do the application, and you have to talk. They have to sign off on what they're approving for you to build. So it has to be reasonable. And I've told several of my QE friends this. They would never sign off. You look at what was done in other areas. They would never sign off on allowing Valdosta Lowndes County to have 350, 400 pupil size elementary schools, even though that's an admirable feat, and if we wanted to go that way, we certainly could, but we'd have to do it with local dollars. Now, they might help us with a third high school. If you got that program energized, you talked Atlanta into finding that money and all that, they might go there, because that has been done in other places. So the $195 million, we could never get the state of Georgia to help us with that. Maybe one of the schools we could get some help on, and then it'd be a local decision as far as the school configuration, if we really wanted to bite off on trying to bring all our elementary schools down to 350 and 400 students. So here again, I'm trying to promote where we can come together, what's realistic and what's not realistic, and that's. I just wanted to say that the program, there's no money, it's not in the budget right now, and it requires a pre-application. So that's two hurdles there with that idea about being able to tap into it for help on any of these construction ideas. Thanks.
Okay. So to kind of summarize and reach back and look at what we were looking at, as most teachers will do at the end of the lesson. The new consolidated millage rate currently would be 16.317. That comes straight out of the Department of Revenue's Consolidated Tax Digest. Professional development, if you want $1,500,000 of professional development, that's 0.534 mils. If you want to know what has happened in systems that have consolidated, have taxes went up, well, we used Sumter County, which was 17%, which was the lowest, and that was 2.770 mils. If you want to know about revenue losses identified by, and here QE, and I give credit to QE because it is correct, the $780,000 of central office loss, and $700,000 of Title I loss. If you want to still maintain or look at those, and we reduced, remember, salaries, so we took into factor that, but we want to keep that revenue. Then the total millage rate, consolidated millage rate, will be between 19 and 20 mils, not 16.34 mils. Okay, next. Who is affected and how consolidation affect my personal finances? How would consolidation affect my personal finances? I used this slide last time. I'm not doing the tax thing, so relax, take a deep breath. I'm not doing that. But the homeowner, the property owner, the renter, the business owner, the citizens, the children, today and tomorrow. Let's go to the next slide out. Based on our analysis, the millage rate will be contingent upon decisions concerning winners and losers, range of the millage rates. I want you to think about that with me for a second. What will the millage rate be? Status quo, 16.317? Or do all of these things take on the losses of some of the revenue? We know we're going to have increased expenses. What will the millage rate be? The request from the QE slide was 19 to 20 mils. I think if you'll go home and add up all the increases and then subtract all the decreases and then divide it by that $2.8 million, you can come up with an addition to that 16.317 or a subtraction to that 16.317. It's going to be an addition, by the way, because I've already done it. Okay?
And that's why we've left this up here, because there's no doubt the Lowndes County Board will be around for the next year or so, and then if passes, that it'd be a new board that'd be put in place, and there'll be a lot of decisions to be made in the first year, second year, third year. It'll take a while to go through all the changes that'll, like the paper said, it's going to be sort of like chaos, I'm afraid, in the beginning. We mentioned this in the first board. We asked for there to be a transition period. When they met with us back earlier in the year, they decided not to put a transition period into the ballot question, so that's why it'll be the funding, and when the state recognizes us as one system and not two systems, that'll really sort of push the envelope on why we'll be having to make decisions rather quickly instead of being able to take a longer period of time. We've tried to set this up a little bit different, although the numbers are the same, so you can understand that our board, future new boards, whatever the case may be, will have decisions to make. You'll have priorities to look at. There's a lot of lines we've had with a lot of numbers out beside it. Everybody I've talked to at QE wants the kids to do better. They expect the kids to do better. That's why, we didn't take out, we didn't strip all the programs out, but it's interesting. I just want to mention, and this is not to disparage any of the other couple systems that's not too far away from us that have consolidated the last 15, 20 years, but, I'm sure you're friends over there. Ask them if they have a VECA program. Ask them if they have AVID. Ask them if they have AP or IB. See what kind of pre-K opportunities they offer in those systems. Ask about Waterford. Do they have the Waterford software at their elementary schools? Ask about the everyday math program for elementary kids. See if they're doing that. Ask about Reading Street, a very popular reading program. Ask about Sidewall. That's a remedial reading program. See if they have that. Ask about Handwriting Without Tears. Ask about that program. And I could go on and on. All I'm saying is we've just tried to hit the big points here. There's local dollars. You can spend as many local dollars as you want to, or you can strip away a lot of this that we explained here tonight. We have two good school systems. Both school systems have showed progress over recent years, and yes, we have areas that we need to improve in, and I touched on that earlier. We think it's related generally to our lower income, our poverty-stricken children. The children come from low-income households. That's where most of the data teaches. So are we doing justice by them by taking federal and state money off the table that in most cases is directed for them? I just leave you with that question. If you want to keep the progress going that's happening currently in Valdosta and Lowndes County, then I'm assuming you want to keep most programs in place. I'm just making that assumption. Like I said, there'll be tough decisions to be made. If you keep those programs in place, you're not going to strip a lot of stuff off. We had talked about our teachers. You're not going to strip teachers' retirement, what we do for them with tax sheltered annuities and professional local supplements. If you're not going to strip all that away, then the property taxes are going to go up. And you can look at other school systems that's consolidated, and that's what's happening. And what does that do for economic development? I said that last time, and I want to say that again. We started out looking at what's best for the kids and student achievement. Then what would it cost locally? It's going to cost more local dollars to do the same things we're doing. And then what does it do for economic development? Well, if your property taxes, you're going to have a significant increase in your property taxes in your community. Most people would tell you that you're sort of pushing away business opportunities. You're not bringing them in. That's the three areas that we've tried to support the Valdosta City system on and show it. If you're going to vote on Tuesday for another reason, then maybe you do need to vote yes. But on those three areas, I challenge everybody to try to do your homework. I know we say this, whether you're in the band or you're on the football team or if you're in math class, doing math homework, it don't really matter. Finish the drill. So I'll tell you, if you're out there and you've made up your mind on where you stand on this issue, then finish the drill. Take yourself to the polls on Tuesday and vote. If you're on the fence and you haven't decided where you stand, finish the drill. There is all kind of research available. QE's got stuff. We've got stuff on our website. Valdosta's got stuff. Do your research. Do your homework. Make a decision and finish the drill. If you're on the QE side, and I'm not talking about the top leadership, I know they've said they're fine. But if you've been in that camp and you're thinking, maybe I need to check their numbers, I would ask you to finish the drill. Make an educated decision, we all should, on where you stand. So, I just want to end up, that's all I got to say. I just want to say finish the drill, no matter which camp you're in.
Thank you, Fred. Now, we have one more slide. Down to the brass tacks. There's been a lot of talk about tax in the last week. Tax, like sharp tax and dull tax. Who's dull and who's sharp tax. And so, the brass tacks are one important key to consolidation is the demand and need for more money. Consolidation will cost more, and we as taxpayers we expect to pay the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I just want to remind everybody why we're here. We're supposed to be all about the kids. Let's do what we can to improve education. As has been said many times tonight, we're not satisfied with all the numbers in education. We know we can do better. We know we will do better. And we appreciate the support of the community. Valdosta and Lowndes is a great place to live. We are fortunate and somewhat unusual in the state of Georgia that we have two good school systems with a long, rich tradition and history and a lot of community support. Not everybody can say that. In the other situations where Fred alluded to them, Dr. Smith alluded to them, where other school systems consolidated, usually one went out of business for a reason. They couldn't financially sustain themselves, or they were just other driving measures. A lot of times it was smaller systems, as we talked about. So just let's think about what we've got here and appreciate what we've got. And you know, this has been a good learning experience for me. I know a lot more about the Valdosta City system than I did before we started. I sure know a lot more about state finance. We know what's available out there to us. And we started out this thing, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think it would get as far as it did. I didn't think a third-party group could have as much influence as they had when neither school system wanted to proceed with this. But here we are, and then there's a ballot coming up on November the 8th, and folks are going to have a chance to make a decision. Unfortunately, Lowndes County won't have a chance to make a decision, but the folks in the city will. And let's remember what it is. It's not a merger, it's not consolidation, it's not unification. It's doing away and dissolving the Valdosta City school system, and then by default, it falls over as the responsibility of Lowndes County. So I'd encourage what the other speakers have said. Do your homework, do your research. You know, we started out with this thing making some assumptions. We know a lot more, and I hope you've seen tonight, these numbers are a lot more definitive than what we started out with. These are numbers we can back up. We've been accused over the past few weeks of not being able to back up our numbers. Well, I agree. We took some educated guesses. We were basing it on knowledge and what we thought to be the best scenario, most likely scenario. But until the last week, we didn't have the opportunity, or didn't take the opportunity, or weren't forced to take the opportunity to dig in, go to the whole source, get all the story, get all the details. Well, that's what you see here tonight. These are numbers we can stand behind. These are numbers that are real. This is our best guess of what we know. There's a lot of other unknowns that we don't know, but believe me, we've asked questions. People ask me questions every day. We have asked some of those same questions of state officials, and sometimes they won't commit. Sometimes they don't know because we are in a little bit uncharted water. As I said, in other systems, there's been a failure of one system or another. There's been a compelling reason why the two systems came together. We don't have that. We have a third-party group trying to force it where there's not community support, there's not the entire community working together for it, and in fact, both school systems and most organizations are against it. So this is a very unusual situation. But I'd encourage you to go out and vote. I'd encourage you to get the facts, get the details. I think, Lynn, we're going to have some time for some questions. I apologize for it running so long, but folks, we wanted to give you the full story. If you're confused about information, you know, go to our website or call some of us later and try to get the facts. But we've tried to give you the best information that we have, and we appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you. Okay, we will open the floor to questions. We'll take about 20 minutes and try to answer questions. tonight is financial issues concerning consolidation. We ask that you limit your questions to the topic. We know that this is an extremely emotional issue for our community, so we're not going to really have a lot of time for editorials, but we do want to answer questions. We have a microphone here down on the floor, so if you have a question, if you would step to the microphone, state your name, your affiliation, and ask your question as briefly and concisely as possible. We'll take about 20 minutes to answer questions.
My name is Sam Allen. I'm a Lowndes resident. The $3 million that you referred to as far as cuts in teachers, about roughly how many teachers' jobs are we talking about losing during this consolidated school?
Why'd you have to ask the question? You know, obviously, to get at the figures, we had to come up with numbers, and we looked at both systems carefully, and we looked at a consolidated system, and there's probably somewhere in the vicinity of probably 48, 50 teachers' jobs that we would need in a consolidated system.
The millage rate that you alluded to, is that 100% collection as far as property taxes
No,
are concerned?
it's based, we never have completely 100% collection, so Troy bases it on a conservative estimate. You generally use like 96, 97%.
I'd like to thank you, Dr. Smith, and thank the Lowndes County Board for putting this forward for them. You've done an excellent job. Any idea how much time you've taken away from educating the boys and girls of Lowndes County in dealing with the consolidation of the two school systems?
I don't keep up with it. As I said before, I'm on call 24/7, and it's been a lot of time. But I have other things that I really need to be focusing on, and I'm sure that Bill has other things that he needs to focus on. But you know, I feel like we have an obligation to our constituents, to the students of the Lowndes County school system, to present the truth.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brenda Rogers, and I am with the Valdosta City School System. And I do have a question, and here's my question. How would it be determined what teachers will stay and what teachers will leave? Would it be all of the Valdosta City School System teachers? How do you think that would be determined?
We have a reduction in force policy, and it will be applied uniformly across the consolidated system. Because as I said, the decisions regarding the future employment of personnel would likely not be made until it came time for the next contracts to be handed out. And we would have to make that decision between the date that consolidation is voted on and May the 15th, which is the date this year that employees, certified employees, have to have contracts with.
Will tenure be considered at all?
So what's that?
Tenure, would that be considered?
Yes, it is. In our policy, it's tenure in the Lowndes County school system.
And to get more specific, if you look up, and we can get it to you after the meeting, our policy, there's like 6 or 7 items that we've used as part of our reduction in force policy, and it's public. I mean, it's public record, and you can look at those items that we go through. The reason, let me tell you this, and I've said this to my friends, teacher friends that I have in the city system, the reason it would not be completely all Valdosta City employees, because there would be, you know, if you look at the items listed, it'll make more sense to you. But it's probably fair to say the majority would be, because you got to remember, our employees have already gone through 2. They're survivors of 2 reduction in forces. You understand what I'm saying? So they survived 2 of that same process. Where,
Mr. Fred, I think you need to go to the mic with that answer.
What I'm trying to say is, first of all, we need to get you the policy so you can look at it and you can share it with city employees. There's 6 or 7 items listed on the policy that we go down as we go through the the employees to determine reduction in force criteria. You know, who might lose their job, who might not be offered a new contract. The reason that it would probably mostly be city employees is because our employees have gone through 2 of those RIFs. You understand what I'm saying? So they're survivors of 2. So that means as a group, they've already withstood 2 of those same processes has already happened.
But we've gone through RIFs too.
Well, all I'm saying is you need to look at our RIF and just see how you stand in our RIF. That's all I'm saying. And we can provide that to you after the meeting.
Let me tell you something that's good, though. We had a lot of success with our retirement incentive policy. So it's possible that we would reconsider the retirement incentive policy, and that, in our case, it lessened the adverse impact on the loss of jobs because people who were eligible to retire chose to retire. Now, I'm not making a commitment. I have not even discussed this with the board. But should consolidation be approved, then we would certainly consider that possibility. And I'm sorry that you're being put in this predicament. It's going to be a very difficult decision for us to make in choosing who to keep and who not to keep, but that will be a lot of factors to go into consideration. And I would say that when it's all said and done, that will be people from both systems that are affected by it. Unless we get enough people to take, unless we offer the retirement incentive, we get enough people to take us up on that offer.
And you said you will provide this information after the meeting? You have some data?
You can go to our website.
Okay.
And you can look on the website to see our policy on the reduction in force. And it would be applied uniformly across the new system.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Reticent audience you have. Hi, I'm John Porter, and I live up in North Edgewood County. I noticed that the Valdosta City Council took a position against consolidation, which I think is a good thing. Good thing. Know what they think. Even though they can't make a decision anymore, the school boards can, still get to know what they think. It's puzzling to me that the Lowndes County Commission has not taken a position, so my question is twofold. One, has anybody got any idea why that is, why they won't take a position? And the other question is, are you aware of the Lowndes County Commission has a meeting on the 7th of November, the day before the election, where even if it's not on their agenda, they could decide to take such a position?
Well, I can't answer a question because I'm not on the Lowndes County Commission. You'll have to ask that question, John, to the Lowndes County Commission.
I certainly can't get y'all to hook that.
Dr. Smith, you alluded to the SPLOST revenue. Now, do you have a firm understanding of what exactly will happen to funds that are generated from SPLOST that just passed in March 11, which probably consists of about $169 million?
No, sir, we don't, because we have met with the personnel. Warren, you may want to address that issue because you and Gary met with them.
And I'm not sure that everyone heard the question. I saw some of the vote indicate that maybe they didn't hear. The question was in regards to the SPLOST funds that have been approved for the city and the county schools. So that was the question, if we knew an answer of how the SPLOST funds would be affected.
My name is Warren Turner. I'm a lawyer for the Lowndes County School System. And there's really 2 issues. The first being the SPLOST 3, which is currently being collected. And most of the folks that we've spoken with in the Tax Commissioner's Office, the Department of Education, the Attorney General's Office, believes that the collections would continue on the SPLOST 3. There is a question on SPLOST 4. And after speaking with all 3 of those governmental entities, everyone says it's completely uncharted territory and no one has any idea. They said that we could certainly anticipate legal challenges from both sides, either one to try to enforce the collection of it and one to try to determine that it's not a feasible tax collection because part of the tax base has been assumed by another taxing agency, and a number of the improvements or new construction that was on the ballot that was voted by the city and the county respectively, they don't exist in the same legal title that they would. As soon as if consolidation occurs, the titles to those properties would vest to the Lowndes County school system. And there is no, for instance, a city central office because there's no further a city school system. So determining where those proceeds, number one, if they can be collected, and number two, can they ever be expended because they were tied to a specific property, no one knows.
Well, it's accurate to say that with so many questions on both sides of this issue, this issue should be decided after November the 8th, and with some more research. Is there a rush to have this decision made now on consolidating the schools with so many questions that are unanswered and so many uncharted waters that we have to cross? Is there any rush from either state or federal governments on why we have to make this decision now?
I mean, it's on the ballot question. I mean, it's on the ballot. It's going to be presented on the 8th, and so it's going to have to be voted on by the citizens, the voting citizens of Valdosta, not certainly excluding the county residents. It would have been nice to address that issue as well as many other issues with both groups sitting down advocating for a position and making a smoother transitionary period. That's not allowable under the ballot question, as I understand it.
Well, going back to the teacher's question on the reduction in force policy, will there be any Valdosta City School System current board members sitting on this new Lowndes County Consolidated Board on November the 9th?
My understanding is that when the Lowndes County School Board unilaterally notifies the city school board that they are taking over the functions of the former Valdosta City School System, there is no Valdosta City School Board. And the Lowndes County School Board members will continue in their elected positions until either an elected or an appointed members would be added to the board, but you can't add members under Georgia state law because you cannot exceed 7 members for a school board of the state of Georgia.
So you're looking at maybe until the end of 2012 before there's any city representation on the new consolidated board?
Depending on the speed in which the Justice Department and the Georgia General Assembly would be supportive or demanding as it relates to the reapportionment and the reconfiguration of districts.
Well, I understand from some of the literature that I received that no teachers will lose their jobs. Is this something that the Lowndes County Board of Education is promising teachers?
Not the lawyer, I can assure you of that. I can't speak for the administration, but I think that Dr. Smith did speak that there will be people who will lose their positions.
I also received a piece of literature that also said that there will be no busing. Is that the position of the Lowndes County Board of Education?
I think it is highly unlikely that there will not be an increase in busing of students from the former county schools into the former city schools and vice versa.
I also received a piece of information about school closing. Is it the position of the Lowndes County Board of Education that no city schools will be closed to this consolidated school system?
I don't think a position has been taken on that. We have to address that after we get to the point.
Thank you.
If I may briefly, my name is Dr. Michael Knoll, and I'm a proud parent of 2 wonderful children who are in Valdosta City Schools. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Smith, and all members of the board for your wonderful presentation tonight. I didn't have any doubts when I came here, and I still have no doubts when I came now after I've listened to all of your presentations that voting for consolidation would be a grave mistake. I'm not a good mathematician, 1 + 1 is still 2 now. If you add up all the figures, all the pieces of information we've received tonight, there are no financial savings, as far as I understand. We will most likely see some people lose their jobs as we are consolidating, if that would happen. And we see tax increases, most likely. There's no improvement in terms of academics. According to a thing I call common sense, but would make only sense to vote no to consolidation. You have made that case pretty clear, I think, tonight. I do thank you for that. And also in the name of my wife, who be here tonight, was my time to come in tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Null.
Any further questions?
This is what you probably can't answer. It's scary to discover how much I think like Dr. Smith when you refer to it. It's private. When you refer to this being a hostile takeover of the Valdosta City Schools, I think it's not just that, it is that, but also when you consider the population of the county, more than half of it, if not now, will be shortly in Valdosta. The Merton school system may be called the Lowndes County school system, but it will be dominated by Valdosta. So it is also a hostile takeover of the Lowndes County school system. That's my question. Would that seem a fair analysis? And if that is the case, then all of you who live in the county like me might want to be calling people in Valdosta and maybe offering rides to the polls, because we can't vote, but they can, and maybe we can help them.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Glenda Fazekas. I'm with the Valdosta City School Central Office Secretary for Teaching and Learning. And I just wanted to ask if the schools were consolidated, I'm assuming you would have to ask for the higher millage rate. Do you know what you would ask for, when, and when it would be requested and when it would go into effect?
Well, we don't know the exact rate. We estimate that it will be somewhere between 19 and 21 mills. The board can go to 20 mills. They have to get special approval to go to 21 mills. But as we have said several times, there'll be winners and losers. The more losers, the lower the millage rate. So we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions before the start of next school year. And the most difficult decisions will center around the staffing issues.
And do you know when would a new millage rate go?
Yeah, the new millage rate generally is set in the summer. We get our tax information from the tax office, and the board generally votes on that generally in July, and sometimes we've been as late as August on voting on the new millage rate.
Thank you.
Yeah, Troy.
I'll address that a little bit more specifically. Good job. We'll have to have a new millage rate for the FY 2013 budget by July 31st. If we don't, we'll have to go into a spending resolution. And having never been in this territory with a consolidated school system, I could not even begin to understand how to put together a spending resolution. So we'll have to make that decision by in time for the tax commissioner's office to take our millage rate to Atlanta before August 1st. So that's kind of the details of how we'll have to get there.
Needless to say, there will be a lot of very difficult decisions to make, and in terms of asking us what those decisions will be at this time, there's no way we can predict that.
I'm Norman Bennett. I'd like to ask a question on the East Floss, I believe. When you said you're still collecting on 3?
Yes, that's right.
And then 4 kicks in after 3 ends. I think you could question the constitutionality of the challenge that it may have to be relooked. I think that's a question that ought to be asked when we talk about how you spend it, because it was legally voted on and it's built on 2 systems. A lot of voters in both Lowndes County and Valdosta, and I think that's an issue that could arise if you don't take that into consideration, because you're doing something different than money that we voted on to be spent different way if you do like consolidate the system without
question that. It could be an issue that has to be reviewed.
It may have to be removed.
I'm David Wilson. The question I have, have y'all had the chance to look at the attendance zones that would have to be drawn in the beginning of the next day if consolidations were granted, and how that would fit into the schools that are existing? Some schools have to be closed and other schools will be built to make these attendance zones work. I know like Truth County has like 7 attendance zones, I believe, and if you had the opportunity to consider that.
No, we have not looked at the attendance zones because we would probably need to meet with the Department of Justice to find out what the parameters that they place on us, and then we'll look at the attendance zones. We're very familiar with our attendance zones, and we have become more familiar with the city's attendance zone. As a matter of fact, one thing that has been accomplished through this, we had a pretty close relationship before, but Bill, I'd say we probably have an even closer relationship now, don't we? We have shared in discussions, especially over the course of the last 6 months, and because for us to make some decisions, we need their input to make these decisions. So I just don't, we haven't looked into it deep enough to be able to say what would take place, but what takes place will be determined by what the Department of Justice tells us the parameters are.
How about the location of the schools within the city and the county? I hear talking about them being like side by side and things like that. How can you have 2 schools side by side serving 2 different
well, we do have 2 schools that are fairly close in proximity to each other. I certainly think that both of those schools would have to remain open, but that's where the busing issue would come in. Some of the city schools are capable of handling a lot higher population than our schools. We build our schools to accommodate approximately 750 students. I think 2 or 3 of the city school systems, Bill, don't you have one with 900 and one with more? Right. Probably what we would, there'd be some shifts in the enrollment, but that decision would be made after discussions with the Department of Justice. Okay. Okay. You're welcome. Other questions?
Dr. Smith, the Boys and Girls Club.
There's a limit on 2 questions per no, I'm sorry.
I'll stay time with my editorial. I got his time.
Okay.
And if you would excuse me from going to the mic.
Sure.
But the Boys and Girls Club has just received a 21st Century grant. And I think the Valdosta City School System was a recipient of that grant as the grantee. Is there any word whether or not if a consolidation occurs, whether or not that 21st Century grant will automatically go to the Lowndes County Board of Education or the Lowndes County Board?
We don't know whether it would or would not. I think the fact that the Boys Club is the fiscal agent for that grant would probably do a little bit in terms of protecting the integrity of the grant. But I think that decision would have to be made by the 21st Century folks as to where that money went to. And just like we said about race to the top money or any other federal money, the determination as to where that money goes will be made by the federal government. It won't be made by us.
Well, I noticed that you didn't put VECA back into your equation. Is the VECA program, was it left off?
Don't read anything into that. We couldn't put everything that both systems currently have, back in there. We use this basically for the purpose of illustration. So that don't imply that we don't have the respect for that program. We do have respect for that program. We have not had any discussions regarding the future of any of these programs.
And I'll make sure this is my last question, and this is along the lines of VECA. Of course, VECA was a federal funded program when it first started, and I think that grant has already run out, so the program is now being, I would imagine, totally funded by local tax dollars. Do you think that the Lowndes County Board of Education would take that as a burden with these economic times that we're facing, and with the increase in tax millages that you are projecting as a program that you want to continue, along with the IB program that's also at Valdosta High School. And I want to collapse that. Since you already have IB at Valdosta High School, would you also put IB at Lowndes High?
That was the reason for the figure that was used. We got the figure from Bill as to how much the annual cost for the IB program was. And I believe what $330,000, $300,000, I think it was $150,000 for the program at Valdosta. But now that cost would be a lot higher. I'm very familiar with the IB program. I was principal of a school. I went out and saw the IB program with a committee back in the late 80s and early 90s. I have a lot of respect for that program. But y'all have already, the Valdosta City School System has already incurred considerable expense in the training of the teachers of that program. If that program were also allowed at Lowndes High School, we would have to incur that additional expense for the training of our teachers of that program. So the possibility we keep that program is probably going to cost us a little bit more than that. But we haven't made any decisions on the future of any programs. We feel pretty confident that this will not pass. But, stranger things have happened. If it does, I want to reiterate what I said earlier. I'm a professional. Dr. Davis is a professional. Our board members, the city, Bill Casey is a professional. The city board is professionals. We will do the best we can to work together to create the best quality education for the students of our community that we can. We just happen to feel like that when you look at the research, there's no appreciable increase in student achievement based on what the research says, and that there will be, in our case, because of the size of those systems, an extremely likelihood that will be astronomical cost to continue the same programs that we're currently continuing. So we'll have to look at programs. We're hindered by a 20 or 21 mil cap. So we'll have to decide what we can do with the amount of money that we can generate, and decide, which programs serve the needs of our students best. And there will be winners and losers, and unfortunately there will be quite a few losers as compared to the programs that we have in both systems right now.
Well, Judd gave me one more of his questions.
Last question.
Both school systems currently has a teacher's credit union. And I'm assuming that both of those credit unions are chartered by the school systems that they represent. The Lowndes County Board of Education has a credit union, and also the Valdosta City School System has a credit union that are backed by their two institutions. If there is no longer a Valdosta City School System, what will happen to the Valdosta Teachers Credit Union? And will there be an available slot on the new Lowndes County Board of Education's paycheck for withdrawals for employees that currently have accounts in the Valdosta City Schools Credit Union?
Same. When the first time I thought about the credit unions, my focus is on students and academics first, and then finance.
You're not retired yet.
I'm not retired. You just gave me something else I'm going to look at tomorrow, but my immediate response would be, that would be a Lowndes Federal Credit Union. That'd be 2 branches. That's the easiest solution that I can give. But it was a good question. It did give me something else I want to ponder on in the future. Well, listen, I want to thank y'all for coming tonight, and I want to close with one comment. Excuse me, 2 comments. We have a balanced scorecard. If anybody wants to question the progress that we're making towards student achievement, you can go to our website and you can pull this off. Now, let me tell you what our goal is. Our goal is to simple. What color do you see more of than any other color on this sheet? It's green. It's green. We have green, we have yellow, and red. It's just like the caution light. Green means go. Caution means you're getting close there. You better slow down. And then red means stop. You better stop and look at the red, because those are the areas where we don't meet our goals. There's actually 1 red area on here, and there are 2 yellow areas on here. Our goals are established on the basis of the State Department of Education. And keep in mind, over the last few years, we've had to operate under, years ago, the QCCs, the Quality Core Curriculum. As Troy said, We've always operated under the same system in the state, but the state transitioned from the QCC's, the Quality Core Curriculum, to the Georgia Performance Standards. And next year, they're going to begin a transition into the Common Core Georgia Performance Standards. And this is a national curriculum. So it prohibited us from establishing certain goals by test scores. Because when you're operating in some grades under one curriculum and other grades under another curriculum, you're not comparing apples to apples. So our goals are pretty simple. If it's below the 90th percentile, our goal is to score 5%. I'm sorry. If our goal is to score 5% or above the state average. If we're in the 90th percentile, we have that ceiling effect, getting close to 100%. So our goal is to score 2% above the state average. Now, I calculated our average score today. It is exactly 10.24% above the state average. I applaud our teachers for the hard work that they're doing in the classroom day in and day out. I hate that this has been disruptive to both the city and the county teachers. But this is what I want to close with. We will not achieve our goals. And our main goal is success for all students in both the Valdosta City School System and the Lowndes County system. We will not achieve our goal of success for all children in both school systems by tearing down either system. You need to remember that. Sometimes I get too passionate. I don't want you to misinterpret this. I'm not angry. I'm not mad. I'm passionate. I am passionate about my job. I have a calling for my job. I've done it for 37 years, and I have never been to work a day in my life that I didn't enjoy what I was doing. And if I had, I wouldn't be doing it right now. So, we're doing this for the children, and I hope your decisions will be based on what's in the best interest of the children. Mike, I see your hand over there.
You might just make a statement that's never been made, I think, and I think you made it today on the radio about the series and things, tests,
Okay. What Mike is referring to, you can use statistics and make them lie if you want to. You can take things out of context and make it appear to be one way when in actuality it's not. A gentleman earlier in the week compared us to Kansas on SAT scores. Boy, was that a mistake. In the state of Georgia, 74% of students take the SAT. 74%. In the state of Kansas, 6% take it. I'll compare our top 25% to their top 6% anytime, and I guarantee we'll win. What you've heard tonight was not taken out of context. It's the truth, the whole truth, so help me God. Good night, and thank you.